right, it's a little awkward not having the screens right in front of or behind us, so it's good to see everybody. I know we're the end of the day here, so we'll hopefully make it a little bit entertaining for you and have a little bit of a departure from the topic. We're going to do some quick introductions, and then we'll jump right in. So I'm Susan Fojtasek. There will be a spelling test later for that. And I am currently Chief of Staff and Improving. I've been in that role since the beginning of the year. But I did graduate with a computer science degree and started my career as a programmer doing C++ and C on Silicon Graphics Unix machines. But I quickly learned that I didn't really enjoy the technical problem solving as much as I enjoyed the people and the business problem solving. So I moved into more of a program project management role where I was really concerned with team dynamics and delivering value and how do we put all the pieces together to deliver software. With that.
All right, thank you. I am Tonya Guadiz, and probably a little easier to spell than Fojtasek. My background is very similar in that I also started as a developer. I was doing C and some COBOL, which will really date me at this point. After several years of development, I moved into more of a business role. I decided I wanted to learn more about the business and how business and technology could work together. So I did a lot of business analyst, systems analyst, and my roles through the last several years have been more of the liaison between technical and business, so making sure that the technical teams deliver what the business wants.
All right, so we're going to jump right in. So today's current environment, if you walk outside, you will probably not see clouds. You'll probably see some sunshine. At least it's a little cooler today. But I did want to acknowledge kind of the environment that we're working in today. So I don't know how many of you pay attention to the news. If you don't, I would encourage you to spend a little bit of time listening to it. But we do have some economic headwinds that we've been facing and a lot of uncertainty in our world today. So things like interest rates are up. Inflation is still pretty high. We have COVID case numbers that are up, and some places are requiring masks again. News headlines, 51 of the top 100 technology companies have done layoffs in the last year. Even just in the last month, we've got SecureWorks that have laid off 15% of their workforce. Microsoft has announced another 1,000 layoffs in addition to the 10,000 that they've already done. And Evernote is moving their US operations to Europe. So why is this important? Why do you care? Companies are looking at revenue. Revenues are down. What happens when revenues are down? Generally, they cut costs. A lot of the big companies in our area are under hiring freezes. You may know somebody, or you may have actually been impacted by a reduction in force, or you may have survived a layoff round. You may be hearing rumors that changes are coming. But what we're here to talk about is a way to make you and give you some ideas to help you become more valuable to your employer. No matter what type of employee you are, I think these things might apply. We're going to throw a lot of ideas at you. Some of these are going to resonate with you and some of them will not, but they're things that you can do, that you can control, that you can implement whatever you're doing on your day-to-day job. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tonya.
All right. So as Susan mentioned, there are different things that you can do to make yourself more valuable to your employer and to your team. And as we talked through this, we talked about the keys to being an MVP. Let's first talk about what an MVP is. When we think of a most valuable player, we think of an accolade or an award that goes to an individual for excellence in a team or a group setting. The focus is on that individual no matter how well the team does. So if I really screw things up today, she still gets the award. Okay, it's good for her. But our focus today is not going to be on that individual. I mean, individual greatness is good, but we want to talk more about the team and how you can help your team be great. We don't want to focus on the superhero, the person that takes on a ton of extra work and extra tasks and forgoes sleep in order to meet their deadlines. That's not what we mean when we say be your team's MVP. In fact, we want to put a little twist on this. Instead of thinking about being the most valuable person, we want you to think about being the most valuable teammate, or an MVT. MVTs think team first. So we will go through what the characteristics of an MVT are, and a little bit of a spoiler here. It's not just technical skills. There are many other things that we need to do to add value to our teams. And then we'll talk about some strategies for how you can develop those. Before we get into that, we do want to start by asking you guys to think about this. So if you were to be drafting your ideal team, and I don't mean NBA or football or anything, your work team, think about people that you have had on your team, past or present. And the first question, and I want you guys to kind of talk within your tables here, but who would you not want to work with again? What characteristics did that person have that makes you not want to have them on your team again? Or maybe what characteristics were they lacking? And don't name names, because you might be talking to people you know. So I'm not asking for names. I want you to think characteristics. And we'll give you 2 minutes within your tables. Just talk amongst yourselves about these characteristics of people or a person that you would not want to have on your team. We can watch the clock there if we need it. Oh, you got it. Everybody has someone. Everyone has someone. Let me know and I'll flip it and then you take it. We have one more question.
Right, it sounds like everybody has one or two of those people that you don't want on your team. We're going to flip the question, though, and I want you to spend another few minutes thinking about who do you want on your team and what characteristics do they portray. So this is who do you want to have on your team and what are their characteristics. I'm going to give you another 2 minutes to converse at your table and come up with some characteristics of those people that you like working with.
Okay, he's got a mic.
All right, we'd like to hear from some of you guys. So can I have a volunteer or maybe two to share some attributes of the people that you really enjoyed having on your team? We've got a guy with a mic here, so if you just want to, just a couple of thoughts. I know it's late in the day, and don't make me pick on you.
Someone who's good at collaborating with the team and doesn't just hoard the knowledge so they can be, quote unquote, the MVP of the team.
Great, good. That's a good one. Collaboration.
One
Two more.
Oh, 2 more, okay.
Sharing of knowledge.
Knowledge sharing?
I don't remember raising my hand, but
But I will say, someone who's closed-minded. Anytime you talk to them and you want to share an idea and maybe have a new thought, and they're not really open to that idea.
That's somebody you want on your team?
Which one are we doing?
That you don't
Is it
want?
question 2? Oh, open-minded is the opposite. Someone who's open to ideas and willing to, grow with the team and help the team grow.
Perfect. Thank
you
so much.
My team and my table had a great discussion. There's a lot of people at my table. Not sure if you can tell, but we talked about someone who kind of goes above and beyond, but not the person who sacrifices sleep. They kind of take someone under their wing. They share all of their experiences, all of their mistakes, because a mistake is where we really learn. Someone who we don't want on our team is that person who sacrifices sleep, because that can create toxic environments, and also the expectations can be negative.
Perfect. A mentoring type. All right, I think we're going to move on to the next slide. So thank you guys for the audience participation. Let's say we're going to turn around and talk a little bit about some foundational skills. And as the picture in the previous item showed, we're going to kind of have a theme around basketball. Now, in full disclosure, neither Tonya nor I play basketball. Never played basketball, but my brother's kids played basketball, so I've watched a lot of it as they've grown up. And they have some basic skills that they've learned, whether that's dribbling or passing or shooting or drills down the field or court, sorry. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about here are some foundational skills for you that we can talk about how they might apply in your world today. So the first one I want to talk about is trust. And what do we mean by trust? So I've thrown a definition up here, but it's somebody you have confidence in, if you really drill down to it. Somebody who has integrity, somebody that you can rely on. And you may think that trust is just a thing. It's either there or it's not. It's really easy to break trust. So if you think about a low trust environment, it's one that's really difficult. One of the most low trust relationships that I've ever worked in was during an acquisition process where the acquirer and the acquiree didn't really get along. The acquiree did not want to be acquired. And so communication and teamwork and trying to get to what is the work that needs to be done. Everybody needed to have their own opinion. Everybody needed to prove themselves. They weren't listening. They were just talking at each other. And it was very difficult to get any real work done. Covey calls that the trust tax, and it is a real thing. Time, it might be money, but it's generally the length of time that it takes to do things. And think about how you might be unintentionally breaking trust in your day-to-day roles. Things like you don't show up for a meeting, or you show up late to the meeting, or you say you're going to do something and it takes you a long time and you don't get it delivered and you just kind of sweep it under the carpet. There are lots of ways that you might be unintentionally breaking that trust. So I want to talk about how do you build trust, because there are things that you can do. And I'm going to brag for a minute about improving. We have really taken on the Speed of Trust book as something that we spend a lot of time with our teams. We've created what we call trust pods, and we spend 13 weeks, sometimes 17 weeks, looking at the trust behaviors. Covey identifies 13 of them. They are probably common sense if you look at them, things you might have learned in kindergarten, but the purpose of the trust pod is really to keep those behaviors front of mind on a weekly basis. Talk about how you're implementing them, or maybe how you're not implementing them in your team that you're working in. So that's a plug for this book. I strongly recommend it as something that has been very valuable. It provides a vocabulary for us to use in how we work with each other on a daily basis or with our clients. But really, I'm going to give you 3 things to think about as far as what you can do to build trust. The first is to do what you say you're going to do, and by when, if that's a component of it. So as an individual, the biggest thing that you can do to build trust with your team is to do what you said, and without excuses, right? If there's some reason that you're not going to be able to do what you said you were going to do, make sure you bring it up and tell people why you can't do it, because that transparency is very key to the building trust aspect of that. This goes to keeping your commitments, delivering results, and practicing accountability amongst your team members. The next thing is to develop relationships. Relationships are really the core of us as humans. You will do work mainly because of the person that you are working with, not necessarily for the company that you're working for. It's really about your teammates. And building a relationship with those folks is as simple as asking how somebody's day went, getting to know them a little bit more. In a hybrid work environment, a remote work environment, sometimes those are the things, the niceties, the water cooler talk that falls by the wayside. So if you are intentional about how you spend a few minutes to get to know your coworkers, will go a long way. A friend of mine, when I was in a role when we were in a really high stress type of environment, she was like, if you just take a step back and get to know the people that you're working with, you'll be surprised how much more they'll do for you. And she was right, and that was a lesson that I have carried with me. The last thing I want to leave you with is to demonstrate respect. No matter how you communicate, if you disagree with someone, or if you want to broach a new idea and you're not sure how it's going to be taken, make sure you speak respectfully. Don't be condescending. Don't act like you know more than that other person does. Don't be rude. In our society today, people tend to talk at each other and not to each other. So having that respectful conversation will give credibility to the points that you're trying to make rather than being angry or defensive. So with those three things, I'm going to, I could talk all day about all the trust behaviors, but I know we don't have all day to do that, and so I'm going to turn it over to Tonya.
Okay, and so before I flip on, Susan mentioned that developing relationships, building relationships is a key component of building trust. And so Susan, I'm going to ask you, what would you say is an essential key to building relationships?
Well, I would say you need to be able to watch Aggie football with me.
Okay, so that's not what I was thinking. I was going to go with communication. Communication is an essential key to building strong relationships. And as far as developing communication skills, a lot of times when we think of people who are excellent communicators, those that I would say have mastered the art of communication, we think of the powerful speakers, people who are persuasive and they're charismatic. But that's only part of the picture. To be a good communicator, you need to develop the skills that encompass all of communication, not just speaking, but writing and listening as well. So the art of communication is being able to convey your thoughts, ideas, and information to others in a way that's efficient and easily understood. But it's also listening to what other people say. It's interpreting what others say and being able to respond in a way that builds that relationship and a mutual understanding. If you have two people talking about something and they walk away with two different ideas, we've failed in our communication. Additionally, your message is more than words. I'm standing up here speaking to you, but you are also watching my facial expressions, my body language. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody's body language is at odds with the words coming out of their mouth, and then you get mixed messages? Tone is also important, and not just in speaking. I want to know how many of you have read an email and in your head thought, it had a bit of a tone. Okay, hands going up, thank you. Yeah, I know I have. I have literally read something and thought, ooh, that person's a little annoyed. All of that's part of communication and things that we want to work on. So to hone those skills, to make yourself a better communicator, the benefits of it are that you build relationships. You can resolve conflicts more quickly. You can influence others. It's also very important in this hybrid environment where teams are remote. They're either fully remote or they're hybrid. Communication is key. It can mean the difference between a well-connected team that's moving towards the same goal and a team that's not cohesive and couldn't even tell you what their goals are. So today we want to focus on communication in all aspects, but particularly the interactions you have every day with your teams. So think meetings, formal or informal, hallway conversations, team huddles, emails, instant message exchanges. All of those are important things that we do with communication. And of course, there are strategies to make you better. In fact, there are a lot of strategies. We're only going to walk through 3 of them today, but you could read a number of books or blogs on these. The ones that I consider important and that I've had to work on over the years, first and foremost, focus your message. Organize your thoughts And this is true before you speak or before you respond to a message, instant message or email. You know, think about what you want to say. You make the message succinct, brief, to the point. Use simple language. You know, don't use jargon that's specific to you if your audience is outside of your immediate team. Don't use slang that they won't understand. Just think about who your audience is and be able to focus that message to them. Understand how they like to receive information. As a consultant, I will say I have worked with a number of different project teams and had to learn to adapt my style. You know, you might have one manager that, I want a status report, but I literally want you to give me red, yellow, green. Just send me a slide, red, yellow, green, and oh, by the way, if it's red, give me a go to green plan. I have others who want bullets, you know, I want more detail. So know your audience. Also know their preference for receiving information. Do you meet face-to-face? Do you pick up the phone? Do you send an email? Do you text them? Figure that out and focus the message to your audience to make that communication more effective. Our second thing here, active listening. And I will say this is one I had to work on quite a bit, especially when COVID hit. Active listening is listening with intent. And sometimes it's easier to do when you are face-to-face with your team, you're working side by side. But there are things that you can do to improve your active listening, particularly if you're not face-to-face, if you're remote. The first one, remove distractions. So think about when COVID hit, we were no longer sitting beside the people we worked with. Instead, you were having meetings with your team or even one-on-one on video. I had a setup, and I think most of us being in technology probably do, where you have one monitor or you have multiple monitors. I would have one monitor in front of me with the person on it, and I was supposed to be having a one-on-one conversation, and what I would find is, oh, look, messages are popping up on these other monitors, and bing, squirrel, there went my, distraction. I wasn't giving the person my full attention. So I had to learn to turn those off, put the phone in the drawer, and give them 100%. Make sure that I wasn't distracted. Also, as part of listening actively is don't think about your reply. Don't be crafting your response in your head while that person is still speaking. Again, guilty. You lose sight of what they're saying. So I learned to just jot down 1 or 2 words so that I could circle back. And that led me to asking questions. Ask open-ended questions to get more information. And then finally, as you're wrapping up the conversations, summarize or paraphrase. Okay, this is what I heard and what I understood. And make sure that you are on the same page, and again, that you're not walking away. This is the opportunity where you can say, okay, this is my understanding of it, and they can go, no, that's not what I meant. And you guys have the chance to fix that. Boop. Whoa. Okay, well, that was lovely. Hold on, technology difficulties here. I can talk about the other one, because the other one here is to have the right attitude. And we'll just keep going right there. Have the right attitude. And this is having a positive, open attitude in your communications. So it is, as you're interacting with the team, don't think, what's in it for me? Instead, think, what can I do to help? How can we work together to be successful? Empathy also comes into play here. This is where you put yourself in the other person's shoes. Look at something from a different viewpoint that demonstrates respect for different perspectives. And if people see that you are open, it opens that line of communication and helps build the better team relationship. And then finally, as you work on these, ask your team for feedback. Be open. I'm going to spend the next month working on my active listening skills. I want to get better at this. Let your teammates know and seek feedback. Ask them how you're doing 2 or 3 weeks into it, and then be able to adjust. Don't be defensive if somebody says, you're still chasing that squirrel or the shiny object. Adjust what you're doing. That's how we all learn and grow. All right, so we've talked about trust. We've talked about communication and how those can get you on your journey to being a most valuable teammate. There are other things that you can do to embrace the team player attitude, and that's what being an MVT is all about. When I think about people that I've worked with, and we've worked with each other for a long time, so I think about people who embody that MVT attitude. It's the people who think we, not me. They've got that team-first mentality. So they are proud to be part of a team and think bigger than themselves. And that's important because that can influence others on the team. If you have one person who is demonstrating that attitude consistently, it influences others. And pretty soon you have an entire team of people that work towards the team goals. They're cohesive and they have greater long-term success. And once again, I bet you can all guess that there are some tips, things you can do. Strategies that you can work on to cultivate that team player attitude. The first one, I already mentioned this one a little bit, but think team first. Have a team first mentality. Be humble. Despite what I like to tell my husband, it's not all about me. It's about we. And so people who are MVTs, their most valuable teammates, they look for ways that they can help their team. They're consistently looking for those opportunities. Second, reliably deliver results. So MVTs are people who consistently demonstrate that they can deliver. You know, it's not a one-off, it's not I was the superhero, I stayed up all night and did one great thing, but it's just the day in, day out. They are delivering for the team, they're delivering quality, they can adapt to the situation, and they work relentlessly to meet team goals. I will say the MVTs are the people that I can make a pass to, and I know they'll be in the right place at the right time to catch that pass because they've demonstrated it consistently. And finally, they're problem solvers. MVTs are not people who will be like, oh, there's a problem, not my fault, he did it, she did it, not my job. Instead, they're the people that step forward and say, okay, what can we do? How can we fix it? How can I help? One of the best examples that I have come across in my career, I was working at a financial institution, and every month we would refresh our test data to make sure that it was secure and scrambled. I managed the test team, and so they would come in that next morning and had scripts that ran to set the data to states that they needed in order to run hundreds, if not thousands, of tests. This was something that we had mastered. It happened every single month. And we came in one day, and all of their access had mistakenly been taken away. No one could update a single piece of data. So essentially, every team was stopped. And instead of looking around going, well, not my job to fix this, and twiddling their thumbs, I watched a number of people step forward from different teams and say, what can I do? And they worked together, and they found a solution and had the team back up and running by the end of the day. Those were the MVTs. They're the people that embody that team player attitude. All right, so enough about teams. I'm going to throw it back to Susan.
All right. I got a toy now, my basketball. You can tell I'm not a dribbler. So we've talked about trust. We have talked about communication, and we've talked about the team attitude. The last thing I want to leave you with is around resilience. So Kobe Bryant, quote here, said, "Great things come from hard work and perseverance, no excuses." When you think about the world today, there's been a lot of external factors that we've had to deal with. So from the pandemic, working at home, being forced to stay at home, wearing masks, don't travel. There's a litany of things that we've experienced. We have an election coming up, and there's a division among our people. We're very polarized. But then you have to come into work, right? So not only have you had to experience and survive all of these things that have happened over the last 3 years, now you're coming into work, and you've got to leave all that kind of at the door. So when I talk about resilience, resilience is defined as the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. And I'm certain that you all have experienced this to one degree or another. But resilience is not necessarily the easiest thing to try to do. I'm going to go through a couple of items and things that you can think about as you're trying to either become resilient or practice resilience. So the first one is really about overcoming challenges. So failure. Almost everybody has experienced failure in one form or another. Failure doesn't define you, but how you react to failure, that is what is going to define you. There are plenty of examples of superstars, like Michael Jordan didn't even make his first basketball team, and look what he was able to do. Dealing with those failures is something that you can spend time reflecting on. So one of the tools that I really like to use around resilience and reflecting on failures is journaling. So I don't know if you guys have practiced that or not, But there's a technique around journaling that you can either game film a conversation that you're getting ready to have, or think about a situation that you've previously experienced that maybe didn't go the way you wanted it, or maybe your project outcome didn't go that well. Your sprint retrospectives are a form of this looking at failure potentially and seeing what you can do to fix it. But the journaling style that I really like is when you take the emotion out of it, you try to list through all the facts and things that have happened, and then you think about, well, here, what was I thinking, and what was the other person thinking, and instead of blaming that other person, you're really taking a look at yourself and what you were thinking and feeling during that interaction. And then taking a step further and saying, gosh, what do I really want out of this situation? Trying to get past the personal, oh, I really screwed this up, or trying to see, oh, these people are going to think badly about me, but no, here's the outcome that I'm looking for, and here's the thing that I'm going to try to do differently next time. But all of that is about your internal way of getting better. And that's really what this is about, is getting better and dealing with people, because you deal with people on a daily basis.
Sorry, I'm behind.
Okay. The second one is around seeking feedback. Tonya's already talked about that briefly, but one of the best ways that you can get better is really to ask your teammates for feedback. You may be thinking you're doing a fantastic job, and yet you may have this habit, or maybe the way you come across to your team doesn't really rub them the right way. Those are blind spots. You may not know that you have them, but you can ask a trusted member of your team to give you feedback. Now, when you get that feedback, make sure that you listen first and you really let them finish and go through the whole thing. The way I like to give feedback and receive feedback is where people talk about what happened or the behavior that happened, not the person or attacking the person or anything of that nature. But an example of some feedback that I got recently, and I know that I'm very defensive if somebody gives me constructive feedback, because I'm like, oh, that wasn't me. But you quickly move past that to, oh, okay, yeah, I can see where that person's coming from. An executive friend of mine was telling me that he's like, as a CEO, if I am on a Zoom call and your background's blurred, he goes, I think you're hiding something. That's just how I think about things. So his advice was really to never blur your background. Now, you can take that or leave that, but that was the feedback that I was given from a coach friend of mine. But I needed to be open to that, right? And not be defensive about, well, I have it hidden so you can't see the words on the screen or whatever. There's all kinds of reasons. But really take that in, think about it. You can choose to do something with it or not, but it is a choice. You always get to choose. The next thing to be resilient is really to maintain a positive attitude. When you think about the people that you want on your team, I always really like to have a group of positive people, because you spend a lot of time at work, you want to have a good time at work, you think about the Debbie Downer or the person that has a smile on their face all the time. It's a lot easier to be around someone if they have a positive attitude. So that's something you get to choose every day when you wake up. How am I going to react today? I have a gratitude journal, actually, that I keep and I think about every day. It's a couple of things that I'm grateful for, and I write them down, because then I can go back and look at it and remind myself what I'm grateful for. The last thing I want to talk about is embracing uncertainty and being adaptable. I would say that this is one of the most valuable things that you can be on a team. Everybody has their strengths. Everybody has their technical strengths. And there are times where, as a team, you need to maybe get outside your comfort zone. A lot of times that happens when you're at the end of a sprint or the end of a project where you're asked to jump in and do something that you've never done before, whether that's writing documentation, writing user training guides, writing tests. If you take that opportunity to step out of your comfort zone, the interesting thing is that sometimes you'll see your own work from a different perspective, and you might learn something. Might be something surprising that'll make you better at your job as you go forward. The other thing, that it's not my job, somebody else will take care of it. As a leader on a team, the types of people that I want are problem solvers, not problem identifiers. The ones that point out, oh, there's a problem over there. Oh, there's a problem over there. Oh, we can't do this. No, I want the ones that will tell me, well, we can't do this, but I can do this instead. Or we can get almost all the way there, but it's going to take us a little longer to get all the way there. So these are 4 things that I would say help to build your resilience and a way for you to cope with situations that you run into. And I'm going to tell you one of the things when I was in this situation that I described earlier, I would think of a duck, which is going to sound crazy, right? But you think about a duck, and I actually have a little rubber ducky. It's a basketball even. Ducks are fairly waterproof. Their feathers are waterproof. That's, they're in the water all the time. And when negative criticism would come through, or people were always like, you're behind, you're not getting stuff done, and it was a situation that we were working through it, but it was a tough situation. I always thought about being a duck, because I'd let that criticism and stuff just roll off my back, like water off a duck's back. So if that helps anybody, you're welcome to use my rubber ducky analogy. But for me, that was super helpful to just remember and keep a little duck in the corner of my office. So I'm going to take a step back for just a moment and talk about, as an individual, we've talked about the team. We've also talked about the individual contributions to the team. I'm going to take a minute to say that you should probably toot your own horn every once in a while. And I don't mean that by bragging. I don't mean that by taking credit for something that maybe you didn't really do, but the team did. But especially in this remote environment where you may or may not be meeting with your supervisor or your manager on a regular basis, I would strongly encourage you to set up one-on-one meetings with your boss. It doesn't have to be every week, maybe every month at a minimum, but it's too easy to be out of sight and out of mind at this point in time. And you want to be able to showcase, hey, I was able to contribute to the team. This is what I did, or this is what I'm learning, or this is the skill that I'm trying to apply. But take a minute just to toot your own horn, because you want to show that you are a valuable member of the team. And now, we've thrown a lot of stuff at you.
We have. So there's been a lot of ideas and concepts thrown out, a lot of attributes. We want you guys to take 2 minutes, and then we will need our microphone helpers again. Come up with one thing, just one thing that you can use to lead your action plan off to how you will become a most valuable teammate. So if you can, just give yourself, we'll give you 2 minutes, and then we are going to ask for a couple of volunteers to share that information.
So what are you going to take out of what we just talked to you and apply it in your world over the next 2 weeks?
Want me to do it? All right, I hear some good conversation out there, so I'm guessing you've all come up with at least one action you'll be taking, and we would like to have a couple of volunteers, so if you'll raise your hand, we'll get the mics around to you, but to know, what are you going to do? Anyone willing to share? And I can't see raised hands from back here, so I'm hoping there are some out there.
One of the biggest things, takeaway, first of all, great presentation. One of the bullet points I resonated with is mastering the art of communication. I tend to, like now, just ramble on and not get to the point, and I wanted to get better at being more concise and present my point better.
Great.
Thank you for sharing.
Anyone? Okay, there's a hand over here. I can actually see the front here.
Hi, that was a good presentation. I think the one that resonated with me and I think I really value is resilience, because we are all working in a collaborative environment, solving all the problems all the time, right, that we have. So it's really important not to be bogged down by any issues we face, but how can we just look at the path forward. And yeah, I think that we'll always need to get up and look at how we can solve it rather than being in that and bogged down by it. So yeah, resilience stands out for me.
Great, thank you for sharing.
One more?
It's the end of the day.
It is the end of the day. Okay, we'll let you off the hook since it's almost time for happy hour, I believe. And we did throw a lot of information out there. I think I saw some people taking pictures of screens, so that's good. We wanted to leave you with kind of a cheat sheet here on some of the attributes, characteristics, things that you can work on to become a most valuable teammate. So yeah, working on becoming the MVP of your team. But this is, I was about to point behind me because I'm used to slides being back there. Just a little cheat sheet. We actually have these, and we can come down and hand them out if you would like a takeaway, or we can put them back at our booth at the table we have. But things to keep in mind, I'm not going to go through these since we have covered all of these.
So to close, we hope that you took something out of all of these things, resonated with you, and if you would like to reach out to us, we're happy to talk about any of these topics in greater detail. And thank you for being here this afternoon, and I think we're about at the end of our time.